Woodcraft, helping you make woodwork.
That technically should be taken to a hone, and that's the one tool that really needs to be as razor sharp as possible, just because of the nature of the cut you're making with it. I found for general purposes, just grinding it on this wheel is sufficient. So, any questions on that? This is the Skew Chisel Grinding Jig. Again, it is an add-on. Now there are, yes sir.
Now, would you recommend that particular grinder with sandpaper over like the stone with the skew?
Say that again now.
Would you much rather you recommend it with that particular grinder than like one with the stone?
Are you talking about the wheels themselves? Oh, I recommend these wheels over anything, for any purpose. Once you've sharpened on a, and again, it has nothing to do with the store brand or.
See, like I bought a grinder here.
You're right. This one.
Yeah, with the stone wheels on it.
Yep.
And I found that it's real easy to right in the center of it and have it kind of.
Well, whenever you have the stone or aluminum oxide wheels, you got to have a wheel dresser to keep the wheels clean, and number two, to keep them flat across the face of it.
Yeah, which I do, and I try to do that often.
You never do that with this. No, there is no dressing. You take these out of the box, you put them on, you use them, and then
how long do those wheels last?
Probably you'll go through 2 or 3 sets of aluminum oxide wheels before this would even wear. They're really less expensive in the long run, especially if you pay like this one. When I bought this thing, it was $105. This gouge. And so I figure if I'm going to grind on that thing, it's going to leave all kinds of steel on the floor, all this kind of stuff, you know. Why? I mean, these wheels they're just more efficient, and they're much easier on your expensive tools. Let's look at a couple of examples of freehanding here just a little bit. Let's see, I'll just pull this out. What's this tool called? Who remembers? What is this? Parting tool. More specifically, it's a diamond parting tool. You can see the rib on the tool itself. Huh?
A 1 inch?
Yeah, a 1 inch. Yeah, diamond parting tool. Now the important thing about sharpening these things is that the point on this always needs to be lined up with that rib. If it's offset, the cut surface is going to be narrower than the rib, and so it's going to burn the wood as you advance this into the wood. So what I do with parting tools, I just freehand these things. It's one of the few things I do. I call this the heel, toe. And what I do is I come up and I just barely touch the heel to the wheel, keeping it straight up and down, and then roll it down. Barely touch the heel, and you got to try and keep it as straight as possible in there. And again, make sure that thing is lined up, and that's really close. You see that? We have a new edge on that, and you can make these things more curved and so forth. It's whatever. The important thing is that the tip needs to be in line with the diamond. Have any of you, have you all heard of a thing called hollow grind? Hollow grind refers to the curvature of the wheel. If I laid this on here and cut a little deeper, this edge right here would be more scooped out. Okay, that is called a hollow. That's the hollow part of hollow grind. So this is one example of a parting tool. This one is a 3/8 inch parting tool. It does the same thing, it's just a little wider. Bring it up, put it on the heel. And you can do that easy enough. Parting tools are quite easy to do. Just make sure there's a nice sharp edge on them. You could, if you wanted to, take this little spiffy gauge, set your platform up and all that kind of stuff, and that would be recommended, but know that you can do these successfully freehand. This obviously has been abused. This is what they call a thin kerf, for obvious reasons. Parting.
Looks just like it.
Yeah. Don't make the mistake I've seen done. You do not grind parting tools on the side. You grind them on the top, or this edge under here. Do not grind on this surface here, here, and here. So what I've done is I did this surface, and I'll just touch it. There we go. That's ready to cut. This is much sharper than what it was. I know what I wanted to show you. Forgot my little piece of wood here. It's my little piece of wood. I'm going to slow this thing down. I don't usually do this, but for time's sake. Okay. 50 degrees. Run that in there, set that in there. That's ready to go. Take my turning tool, put it in the very grind, 2 inches, caught in the microphone cable here. Snug this up. Okay, where we left off with this thing was we were putting a new edge on it, so on and so forth, okay? Now if you'll notice this right here, I call this the chin. Right here, you follow me? This part right here. Now, with the bowl gouge, as you go down through and you're coring out the inside of a bowl, it's going to rub on that bevel. So if you remove some of this chin right here, it will better follow the contour of the bowl. Well, how do you do that? Well, that's where this little block of wood comes in. This is set up for 50 degrees. We were grinding and so forth. Take this little block of wood and put it in here, pushes this forward, and now you can see that I'm working on the chin. And so you just roll it back and forth for a while until it tends to look. Did I grind that off? Yeah, a second. Got the little spacer in there. Just roll it, rock it back and forth a little bit. I will put a much more pronounced grind on that chin, so it's more rounded. You want to leave a portion of that bevel alone, okay? Straight, working into rounded chin. Follow me? And then that allows this tool then to kind of go around the corner, if you will, as you advance it into the inside of a bowl. That's what that's for. That's the cheapest part of the whole setup. Any questions on any of this stuff? Again, if you follow the instructions in that little article, and if you get one of these things, you will be successful. Just remember when you're doing bowl and spindle gouges not to make a point. That thing should be rounded. You can see on this gouge how that tip is rounded. In other words, around here. It's not at a point. Because typically when you use these tools, you are not advancing the point into the work. You're doing the cutting here. One other thing, when you're doing these long swept back things, the wings, if you'll notice the shape, they're not concave. I'm talking about this area right now. They're not concave, nor are they straight. They're a tiny bit convex. If this wing is straight on the top, it's going to be very aggressive and you will get a catch. But just that slight convexness, if you will, allows the thing to.
When you grind it?
Yes, you pay attention to what when you're removing stock, when you're swinging this thing back and forth. Watch, because you're going to be changing the shape of this. Not dramatically, unless you do it on a 40 grit wheel or something. Okay, so you can control. Yes, you can control that. That's the nice thing about this jig setup. So the bottom line is, if you choose in your turning to use conventional turning tools, you have to have some way of keeping them sharp. And by using this thing, you will get obviously repeatable results all the time, and you won't remove a bunch of steel on your tools that doesn't need to be as a result of freehand going. Any questions?
Good stuff, Bob.
There's one left here. So, yes, sir.
Somebody asked, I didn't know how long those wheels last. Bob Weaver sets over 3 years old. He turns every day.
Yeah.
Plus, a whole lot of us go out there and he lets us sharpen our tools free, and they're just still as good as new.
My favorite sharpening story is I have a son who lives in Anchorage, Alaska, and 3 or 4 years ago I went up there to visit him in January and happened to be there for the monthly turning club meeting, Anchorage Wood Turners or whatever it is. And so I walked in and got my cup of coffee and donut and everything, and I noticed in the back there was this line of people, and I counted them. There were 17 people in the line, boom, 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 and every person had a couple of turning tools with them, and the line went down this hallway. So I went down there and looked around, and here was a guy with this setup, not these wheels, but the one-way setup, and people were coming in once a month to get their tools sharpened. You can't turn wood like that, folks. If you're going to get a lathe, factor the cost of sharpening, assuming you use conventional sharpening tools. If you use the carbide tip tools, well, you don't need one of these. So yeah, just sometimes if I'm working a big piece of, or a very thick piece of wood, I'll just leave the thing running and go over every 5 or 10 minutes and just put a little tiny edge on it. It's kind of like stropping a razor, if you will. Anything else? Thank you for coming in today.
Thanks, man.
Go grab your coffee and donut on the way out if you want.